Our next session is Evolving Trends and Strategies in Multifamily Real Estate, sponsored by Hylant. Let's meet our speakers. Sam Beznos is the CEO of Beztak, a 60-year-old family business with more than 34,000 units across 14 states. Beztak is an award-winning nationwide developer, builder, owner, and operator of luxury apartments, independent and assisted living facilities, and commercial real estate centers. Sam is in charge of property management, asset management, finance, construction, and accounting for Beztak, a true hands-on owner. Let's welcome Sam Beznos. Our next speaker, Adam Gould, is Senior Vice President of Bellwether Enterprise. Bellwether has 38 offices throughout the country and recently surpassed $50 billion in commercial mortgages serviced. Adam has 25 years of experience in finance and banking and knows how to get the deal done. Let's welcome the money man, Adam Gould. Sam? Celebrating 50 years of Singh, Saab, Grewal, and Singh Development is a family-owned real estate company since 1973, specializing in diverse projects like residential, senior living, single-family homes, commercial real estate, and golf courses. When are we playing our round, Saab? Let's welcome Saab Grewal to the stage.
We don't golf.
Andrew Kuhn is the founder and CEO of Sunrise Communities. Sunrise owns, operates, and third-party manages multifamily communities throughout the state of Michigan. Andrew is also the current president of Entrepreneurs Organization, as well as the Apartment Association of Michigan. The Apartment Association of Michigan is the leading advocacy group focused association for owners and operators within the multifamily space. Let's welcome Andrew Kuhn. Dannis Mitchell. Good morning. Good morning. Dannis is a member of the executive leadership team with Barton, Malow, Michigan's largest commercial construction firm with more than $6 billion in annual revenue. Dannis is a licensed real estate professional who works with clients to assess their development goals, strategically align procurement and labor resources, while engaging community partners to ensure the project's success. Here to add her unique unicorn status expertise to this panel, Dannis Mitchell. Raji Uppal is Vice President, Principal of DTN Management, as well as the CEO of DTN Asset Management and Development. Raji also oversees company acquisitions, asset management, and all IT functions. Raji also founded Stellar Broadband, a fiber optic-based internet and cable television business, and is also a rocket scientist that happens to be in commercial real estate. Let's welcome Raji Uppal. Let's meet our moderator. Nicole Koppinger is an insurance consultant at Hylant. Nicole draws on her experience as an attorney to provide clients with strategic risk management solutions. Nicole works to identify and understand her clients' complex problems in order to create enterprise-wide frameworks to control risk. Let's welcome Nicole Koppinger.
Good morning. So we have a wonderful panel with us here today, so let's get right into it. So each of your organizations have been around for decades, and some of you are third and fourth generation business owners. Given the current environment in market regulation, what do you attribute your company's success to, and how have you been able to be creative and proactively problem solve within the market today? Sam, would you like to start us off?
Sure. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you, Derek, for having me on the panel. I would say sticking to our core values is first and foremost. What has made us successful over the years, not chasing markets. I think you often get in the heat of the moment and want to do more, and you lose sight of why you're doing the business. So that is certainly something that we always remind ourselves when we're looking at opportunities. investing and reinvesting in ourselves and our people. That's something we regularly do, but we do that in good markets and bad markets, and I think that has helped us be successful over the years. So I would say having a long-term approach to investments. These real estate transactions don't always turn out the way you think, and sometimes they take time, and you have to work on them to perform. So it's a living, breathing organization, our company as well as the real estate in many ways, and you have to constantly work them. So those would be top of mind.
That's great. Adam, any thoughts to add?
I would just say with Bellwether Enterprise, we've been around since 2008. We've grown from a $1 billion portfolio that we inherited of commercial mortgages to over $50 billion at this point. I help manage our office here in Birmingham down the street, but we have 38 offices nationwide now. And the ability for us to keep our culture while growing over that period of time is truly amazing. And every time I get together with all of I call them my brothers and sisters because we're so close, and I've been with the company for 9 years now, but just being able to keep that culture while growing, and at the same time, especially with lending relationships with HUD or Fannie Mae where we have risk sharing, not taking too much risk. And I'm proud to say right now, with over $50 billion of commercial mortgages serviced, our delinquency rate is currently 1 basis point. So it's gone pretty well so far.
My turn. It's like Saab Grewal from Singh Development Company. Hey, yeah, thank you guys all for being here. And it's hard to move 2 feet in this room without meeting somebody impressive. So I think the networking time was well worth it, and continue to do it because there's a great group of folks in this room. Like Derek said, we're over 50 years old as a company. There's a lot of things that have worked to get to 50 years, and there's a lot of things that have gone wrong, and you got to learn from both of them. Like what Sam said, not all our deals are going to be great, but if you go in it with the right intention, it's going to work out in the long term. I think both of our families kind of have a perspective of saying, we build our balance sheets, we hold on to cash. Like we had a 12, 13-year bull market. Everybody made some money. If you didn't hold on to that cash to be able to weather the storms that are coming, you got some problems ahead, right? And so to be conservative, focus on what you do, reinvest in your people and your assets, you're going to be okay. So.
Andrew Kuhn, Sunrise Communities. It's impressive. First off, thank you, everyone. Thank you, Derek, Nicole, the whole team here. It's interesting. I don't think there is a better commercial real estate day in the entire year than here when you bring the entire state of Michigan in to see this. And it's really impressive being here and honored. One of the things I was thinking about, just in addition to everything that was said previously, right? So being fiscally conservative, investing in your people, building, having a long-term horizon, not trying to beat the market and being smart. One of the things that I would say, especially now as we evolve, is operations are getting tougher, right? So OpEx costs are up, so expense management is a huge thing. And we're also finally to a point in the operations business of multifamily real estate that we're finally starting to get some technology. Like as an industry, commercial real estate has always been behind the times. And so now we're starting to see better technology, automation, systemization, where you can actually build efficiencies in your business and squeeze out OpEx yield when you're chasing alpha in your investments. And so I think staying nimble, being aware on the ground with your people, so investing in your people and investing in your systems are probably 2 of the biggest things right now to survive in these times.
You really just teed up my answer.
There you go.
I appreciate it. So good morning, everyone. Dannis Mitchell with Barton Malow Holdings. Barton Malow is actually celebrating their 100-year anniversary this August, actually. And in order to sustain in an industry where it's constantly changing, we're always thinking about innovation. So we've most recently invested in systems like our lift build technology, which allows us to build housing from the top down. It allows us to be more efficient, more effective, and reduce the labor that's needed on site. In addition to the technology piece, we've also started to invest in AI, something that you wouldn't think a construction company would have that level of interest in. But what we're finding is that there are so many unique ways to integrate AI into how we build. It's really mind-blowing. We just recently had a officers and directors retreat where one of the activities were for the entire group to use AI to figure out how to stop the ice from melting in our parking lot over the winter. And when you think about how we were able to take that, the co-pilot system and really think through the process, it's really pushing our level of construction workers to a whole nother level. In addition to the culture, so Barton Malow is really entrenched in developing our people. We're built on people, projects, and communities. And when you have that level of focus on your core values, it's a reason why people want to come to our organization and stay. So when you invest in not just the technology, the people, but the vision of what's coming down the pipeline for tomorrow, so staying ahead of the forecast and being that industry expert to really give that feedback to our clients and developers, we've really been able to reshape how we look at our organization and stay at the head of the pack.
I guess being last kind of makes it interesting, but we're also a 50-year company. It's a family-based business originally. It started with 3 people by the name of Dennis, Tom, and Nick, thus DTN Management Company. I would attribute our success and continued success to really focusing on the customer. Really what we focus on is what does the customer need, and then deliver what that customer needs. And by the same token, as we're doing that, our number 1 or number 2 priority is making sure that our employees are taken care of. So if you take care of your customer, you take care of your employees, you take care of your assets. From my perspective, usually the ownership always works out. And we have long-term horizons, we have balance sheets, all the things that they're repeating that was said there, so I'm not going to repeat it. But the long and the short is if you take care of your people and you take care of your customers, we've had continued success. We started an internet company, which was an offshoot when they were making fun of me being a rocket scientist. I used to build satellites, so I was always envious of what you don't have, right? All of us are. So it started out where that satellite has infinite reach but limited bandwidth. So when I came here to Michigan and get involved in the family business 25 years ago, I was like, I have to have fiber. It has infinite bandwidth, right? So that was so we connected all our communities in East Lansing, Michigan, and expanded from there. But the truth is, that's what we're focused on. And by the way, that technology that we're providing is key to what everyone wants. And originally, we used to think it was a student-focused type of thing. But if you look through what's happened in COVID, that connection, that connectivity is more relevant than a lot of the aspects of the home itself. So, thank you.
Thank you, Raji. Now, Sam, going off of the community aspect that Raji was just mentioning, you've made the statement before that, Beztak is focused on building communities opposed to just buildings and structures. Would you mind sharing with us a bit about how you create a community and a true experience for the consumer?
Sure. Yeah, I think one of the most gratifying parts of our business is that we do create communities, and these assets, hopefully last, beyond my lifetime, and 50, 60, 100 years, who knows? And they're a significant investment in the communities. So we try to deliver not only what the customer wants, but what we think they want that they don't know they want. And we really look to design and build projects that not only fit within the community, but can stand the test of time, and really not cut corners. And we want to be a major part of the community. We service probably, 60,000 residents, 60, 70,000 residents, and so we're hearing a lot of feedback from our residents on their spaces and what works and what doesn't work. So when we meet with the communities, we try to incorporate that into our design, but we also try to understand what the community's objectives are. And I think as a private company and a company that we kind of go against the grain, and probably from a construction efficiency standpoint, and we know this, we design these buildings fresh to fit each community. So often we believe, when you take a project that you've built in another location, you stick it in a new community, it fits out of place, right? doesn't necessarily fit the site conditions, doesn't necessarily fit, what the community wants. You might not address the neighbors or whatever. So, we try to design every project to fit all the unique characteristics of not only the community, the site, the culture there, and trying to look forward and really educate the communities themselves on what we believe the customer really wants that they may not know and that doesn't even exist. So that's kind of what we do, and that's our approach.
That's great. Thank you, Sam. Dannis, would you mind touching on a large community landmark, the Hudson site, that's currently under construction in Detroit, and tie in the element of community there?
Yeah, so in my role, I'm actually the person that spearheads the community engagement process on our mega projects. So what that means is when a project has to go through, for in Detroit, for example, the community benefits ordinance, I'm the person that works from the construction side with the developer to really get engaged with the community. So hearing what the residents want, working alongside the AE, making sure that that information is then being translated in a way in which it makes sense for that particular location. At the end of the day, when we build projects, I have realized that a lot of our developer clients aren't accounting for the dollars that are necessary to go into this community piece that has now become top of mind in the last, I'll say, 10 years. We have projects like Hudson's, but before Hudson's in Detroit, we had the Little Caesars Arena. That was probably the most transformational project at the time that had a community benefits process. And that requires not just engaging with local residents, but engaging with representation of the residents through the form of the neighborhood advisory councils, for instance. I also have to work alongside city council to make sure that they are representing the voice of their constituents, to make sure that if there's something that, for instance, maybe we want to talk about jobs, the community wants to see how many jobs are going to be created as a result of this project in their community. I'm the person responsible for looking at the manpower analysis and working with our union partners to understand when we can get those jobs started, how many jobs there will be, and the cost to the client for such. So I am proud to say that the Hudson site is one of the highest performing Detroit resident participation projects in this area, and that's something that was not an easy thing to do. But we were able to build on projects like the Little Caesars Arena, the Ford Book Depository, that also had what we call executive order requirements that fall under that community benefits ordinance, and building on that momentum from those projects to keep those numbers high. So it's a lot of coordination and collaboration that must take place to really build a community-based project. When we talk about community, I think of not just housing, but I think of sports stadiums, I think of commercial. To me, anything that you're putting in an area where there are surrounding residents, that's community. And we have a responsibility to be good stewards over those buildings and those projects, but also by drawing in local businesses and residents to be part of the process.
That's great. Thank you, Dannis. Andrew, being the president of the Apartment Association of Michigan, have you seen anything from a community guideline standpoint that has changed and made development or acquisition somewhat more difficult?
Boy, she set me up for that one, didn't she? It's interesting. So I'm the only one on this panel that primarily buys existing assets, right? So our company invests, repositions assets. Got involved for the longest time in the industry. We started in about 2006 in the residential space, and I didn't want anything to do with politics. I was like, I'm a private developer, investor, doing my thing. About 6-7 years ago, got involved in the Apartment Association of Michigan, the AAM, which is a very unique organization if you're in the multifamily space, because it's the only and the largest principle-based, advocacy-based organization in Michigan. And so there's about 200,000 units across the membership. And it was really interesting because once I stepped up about 6 years ago, I learned that how decisions that were made in Lansing affected our industry, right? And how quickly I learned that a lot of it's politics, even though housing is an economic issue, right? And so it shouldn't be a partisan issue. And so what has happened is we have an entire legislative committee. About 80% of our time is spent on advocacy efforts at the state level. And we even have a bill tracker. So any bill that is, put forward to a committee, that's in a draft, that type of thing. Historically, we would have about 2 pages, called an 8-9 font, of bills that we were tracking at any given time between the House and the Senate. Now we have over 5 pages of either prospective or introduced bills. So to say that it's a more challenging environment is an understatement. That's the reality of it, quite honestly. And because we have 2 issues in Michigan, right? So we have a supply issue. People talk about affordable housing, attainable housing. The reality is just we have a shortage of supply relative to the demand. And then we also have a legislative issue that we're fighting for every day and that we're trying to get other owners, because if our voice is not heard, it's not going to help Michigan attracting residents and hitting all the goals that it wants to as a state. So there are a lot of challenges, and I'm sure if you ask some of the other panelists, they'll talk about why they build out a state. They'll talk about why, even though they would probably rather do their developments in the state of Michigan.
Saab, would you mind touching on that a bit?
We love Michigan. And we're still doing stuff in Michigan. I think every municipality you go to, I think the job of developers, I don't know if any of us realize that we're getting into politics, but you get into politics, right? Because you're out there and you have an idea for a deal that you want to do, and it may not fit the parameters that local municipality has for that specific area, right? And so then it's our job to go there and stump for it, right? And go there and say, hey, listen, your community needs this product. These are the reasons why this product works and how the community will benefit from it. And like Dannis touched upon, right, that's changing, right? And change is really constant. It's almost happening a little bit faster today than it's been in the past. I think for us, what we've been doing recently from a community focus is, we do a lot of different asset types, right? We have single-family housing, we have multifamily housing, we have senior housing, and they're all segmented. You do single-family over here, you do multifamily over here, you do senior over here. Somehow senior is okay to do in industrial areas for whatever reason these days, right? But you have all these demographic types, they're all living apart from each other, right? And so like once you've passed that phase of your life, you got to go someplace else, or you got to go someplace else. And so our focus as of recent has been this kind of intergenerational housing. And we think that, if you get people to live amongst each other, maybe with a little bit more density, right? And so a lot of your municipalities don't like this density, right? That brings the wrong element. But we have a housing shortage in this country. It's our job to go out there and convince our local municipalities that they need more housing at all different levels, right? And we need to have people living amongst each other, because what we know today is that if you silo everyone, they start to disagree with each other and think that there's an enemy next door, and that's really not the case. And so, I don't know, we're all politicians, we're all do-gooders at the end of the day. We just got to go out there and stump.
That's great. Thank you, Saab. Raji, do you have any commentary to add, and how the dynamic in the Lansing market has been recently?
Well, from our perspective, we still really do focus on where the communities, and we're looking for communities that have good school districts, have good basis for a place where you're going to build your assets. So we kind of look at what the communities are, and then we kind of focus around that. And we are diversified. So we are still focused out of Lansing, and I'm building, as I say, we're diversifying. I'm building 2 projects currently there. One is homes where it's a build to rent. Another one that we're doing is mid-rise with a mix of this stuff. And we had these assets for a long time, so we've got these slowly approved, continued through the municipalities, had those relationships. We've also been simultaneously diversifying into the Grand Rapids area, so we started doing some developments and some high-rises. I never dreamed when I was like a rocket scientist, we'll make fun of that while we're at it, that I would be building 11-story buildings, but we ended up building 11-story buildings and 15-story buildings in Grand Rapids. But it's all engagement with the community. The key is the engagement with the community. And what's happened to us really is that the needs are changing. The people who are renting from us, and at least the stuff that we're building, is renter by choice, okay? And what do I mean by renter by choice is they're all making $100,000, okay? My median income in my properties are $100,000, okay, in some of these newer communities. So that's not answering the affordability question. What that's really answering is that people's needs have changed. So when I started out, I used to think of a job for life, right? or I did. I was like, what's my pension? That was my first question I used to ask. Now it's transactional in nature. People are having children later, and because of these needs changes, really, they want the same thing as a home, but they don't want to own it. They don't want to stay there forever. And there's a persona out there that a renter is different than an owner, and I would argue that they're the same. Okay, I don't believe that they're different. I believe they're the same. And I think our focus shouldn't be on, are we using these homes or rental homes? Are they rental or are they bought? I don't think that's relevant. I think it's what type of housing do you want to build, right? And once you decide what type of housing you want to build, then you're going to find out that they're the same people. We did some developments where there was for sale next to for rent, and if I'm honest with you, the per median capita was higher for my renters than it was for the buyers. And so we continue to focus on those different things, but we really do focus on what is a good community and where do we want to invest in. When we go to a community, we commit to the community. I mean, when we came to Grand Rapids, we're not the biggest player in Grand Rapids, but we went and made sure that we knew all the players that were there and supplemented what's going on there. And by the same token, that's what we're doing. And our focus really is to continue to contribute to Michigan. We are still building in our hometown. We are building up in Traverse City. We are building in Brighton right now. We hope to be building in Ann Arbor and Novi soon. So we are moving this way a little bit, and we are building out of state. But the reality is we would like to keep our money here. It's just going to take a cooperation from all of us to make the economics work enough that we can continue to do that, because there is a need.
Thank you, Raji. Sam, would you like to touch on that?
Yeah, I can touch on a couple of things quickly. I mean, I think there's a little bit of a difference between the community dynamics and then what's happening in Lansing, too. I mean, I think communities that are difficult in their roles with development requirements, certain standards and stuff like that, I mean, to some degree, we don't mind that because it helps create value if you can get past it. But I think the problem is when communities don't listen to owners, and they get stuck on the public policy trend, or and then they decide they want to overregulate everything. And so we operate in a lot of different markets, and we're building in other markets, and what we're seeing is in certain situations, and some of this proposed legislation that's out, some of this stuff is going to be very difficult to operate going forward, can really dilute the value of the real estate. I mean, if you can't evict tenants, for example, because they're not paying, or you're going to be restricted on rent increases and you can't maintain the properties, or there's a lot of anti-business rhetoric coming out of Lansing right now, and some of it could hurt our industry, and it takes money to we talked about this earlier, reinvesting in the real estate. So we like Michigan, we've been invested in Michigan, but there are other communities too that will try to address affordability, which is an absolute real issue today in any state, in any market. But also understand that some of these to address affordability is separate than restricting profitability, or even the ability to maintain and run your business. And I think that that's part of the problem here. I think when people are doing certain things because it sounds good without being educated, and I'm happy that Andrew and others are trying to advocate to educate our legislator on it, but because that certainly needs to be done. People need to be a little bit more open-minded on trying to hear these issues. But I think when these communities or these states become anti-business or not working with businesses, then you start to see people go elsewhere. And we've seen that in our state over the years as the population has declined, and we are heavily committed to the state of Michigan. We want to see it grow, so we just want to make sure that that our legislatures understand how policy can affect long-term investment and the ability to reinvest as well.
Thank you, Sam. Would you mind touching a bit on what changes would need to be made in order to keep you developing full force in Michigan?
Well, I think, fortunately, we saw a recovery in the state, over the last 10 years where investors wanted to, and lenders, a lot of people in the room, wanted to do business here in the state. There were a lot of outsiders that came into the state of Michigan. Traditionally, from the real estate market was very local here. We didn't have national players on here. So, I think that's very good. We've kind of are in a much better standing, in terms of outside investment now, appetite than it was before. But I'm worried that can change if the business climate becomes sort of anti-business. So I think that we have to be very sensitive to, community policies or, state policies that really don't welcome business. Then that doesn't mean that the doors should be open and there shouldn't be any controls, or there should be, just no zoning or whatever that type of stuff is. But I think they need to, we see we have commercial property. It's very hard for retail tenants the small businesses, everybody talks about small business and politics, they can't get a permit. They can't get a C of O to open up a business. In certain communities, it takes months and months and months, and if you build out a space and you can't open up and you can't make money. So, I mean, these type of things are happening in our state, but they don't happen everywhere. So I think, if you continue to see that type of climate, you're going to see investors going to say, well, it's going to cost me the same amount of money or the same return. I can go to this state or the state, and, why do I go here?
That's great. Thank you, Sam. Adam, would you mind touching on a few of the hurdles that the lending environment has faced recently, if you're in a financing standpoint?
Sure, I guess we can start with interest rates.
We can start.
Feared some people in the room might want to hear about that a little bit, but all things being equal, though, I would just say, as we're talking about investments from out of state and from the equity side, but from our perspective as a company that represents directly, we represent HUD, Fannie and Freddie. They're always supporting multifamily. I would say if all of a sudden you can't evict people in Michigan, we've got a much different issue, right? And I think it'd be a much bigger issue as well. But we do see it. Look, we've got a roster of over 50 life insurance companies that also lend for us and we service for. And not all of them come to Michigan just because of some of the ups and downs. The dirt, as I always say, the dirt moves up and down a little bit more here than it might on the coast. But I would hope that, obviously, from a legislative perspective, that things don't change too much from an eviction standpoint or eviction for not paying. So, but overall, I would just say that multifamily is still the favored class for all of our investors that we service for. That's not changing anytime soon, hopefully. Obviously, if laws change, that could change as well. But look, we have the ability to get creative with our structures. And one of the things that came out in the last week is that Freddie Mac is now going to entertain some 35-year amortizations a little bit more. That's more on the acquisition front. So don't think that you're going to get that on a cash-out refi. But doing things like that to try to combat the higher for longer interest rate environment, I think is really important. But overall, I would say, look, we've had challenges primarily because of interest rate increases. For the right deals, we can still get them done, and with our roster of lenders that we service for, we certainly can get them done. So, just one other quick point as we're talking about legislation. This year, Fannie and Freddie reduced their lending caps this year to $70 billion each, but we're not concerned about that at all. Last year they did around $50 billion each, $55 billion each, and that's probably all they're going to do this year too. And that's really driven by the lack of acquisition activity. Obviously, the bid-ask spread issues that we've had with multifamily.
Thank you, Adam. Andrew, so does the higher for longer interest rate environment change the strategy of Sunrise at all?
Great question. You know, it's interesting. I was having a conversation with a longtime owner-operator here just this morning, and the reality is that we're at historic norms. And even for my 17, almost 18 years now, I wasn't doing loans in the 80s and the S&L loan crisis in the early 90s, you know, where we had double-digit interest. But what I did say is that I'm also a student of history, and I love asking individuals who have spent their entire lives and careers in this industry, because the reality is that we are at, you know, a historic norm on the trend, right, for rates. And so for me personally, it just means that the assets are going to have to, you know, underwriting with conservative debt, the values are going to have to match up with that for buying existing assets. And so whether that's a price resetting, whether that's closing the gap between the bid-ask spread, something's going to have to break for things to continue to move. And so, you know, as, again, my crystal ball is as cloudy and broken as everybody, but I do believe we may be in a higher for longer, quote unquote, but with historical norms and a long enough horizon and knowing that real estate's a cyclical business, like, we're just going to adapt with the times. And it goes back to being nimble and being able flexible to adjust your strategies, your acquisition pricing, and your operations, and being conservative, quite honestly. If we look at the people who got in trouble, they were running, you know, 80% LTVs, they were running ARMs and variables with no rate caps. And now granted, a lot of people didn't expect to get caught in this, but it did happen, and it was just an additional level of risk that I don't think was priced in or built into the assessment or the underwriting on the front end. And so for us, you know, we're still looking for acquisitions, but like Adam said, you know, deal volume is down, right? Because we're still flushing a lot through the system, I believe.
And just a quick point on historic interest rates. The 30-year average on the 10-year Treasury yield is just over 3.8%, which isn't that it's not that much different than our current 10-year of 4.25%, call it. So spreads have come in a lot this year too, and that's really starting to help out.
That's great. Adam, while I have you, you recently closed a deal that was mixed use, and so it was a combination of a lot of different asset classes in one. Would you mind talking about how that specific asset helped create a community and how lenders looked at it more favorably?
Sure. Well, I mean, lenders are always going to look at multifamily as kind of the favorite asset class first, but I think if you throw, you know, 3 or 4 food groups into the mix, I think it helps blend things out. And it all depends on what location you're in. You know, in a place like Birmingham, for instance, it's great to have all the different asset classes, and they're going to do very well. When you're in places like Detroit, that can, you know, it depends on where you're at. Obviously, the neighborhoods are going to be a lot different than the core. But I would say, as we're going out to lenders, especially non-HUD, Fannie and Freddie lenders, or Life Cos, CMBS, it's good to blend it out. It's good to put portfolios together, and it's really good to blend out the sources of cash flow.
That's great. Saab, so managing a large team and having a 3rd and 4th generation business, how have you been able to manage a team and lead them throughout all of the economic times that we've experienced recently?
Managing a large group of people, I think building real estate's easy, managing people is difficult. But you know, it could be an art form that takes several different mediums, and I think the key is you got to have, you know, your core value system, and you got to stick to your core value system. Everybody's got to believe in it and work toward it. Not to say that, you know, you're not going to have some ripples and some difficult times. I think in a family business, it can be somewhat challenging. I think any family member that's entering a somewhat successful organization, you have a lot of expectation, and you may want to think that you're starting at home plate and getting to first to second to third, but really you're not. Maybe you're starting at second, maybe you're starting at third. And as long as you understand that and know where you're supposed to be, you do the best you can from that point, right? So I always say, like, you know, Singh was started by my father and my uncles. They've grown a largely successful organization in multiple states. When I entered the business, I was firmly on third base. And so my job is score runs. And scoring runs is, you know, going out there and changing the business where it needs to be changed, you know, adding value where we think we can add value, doing new deals, but also making sure that we maintain that culture that they've created to keep it as this kind of family business. We have 2,000 employees, but if you talk to our people, they all feel like they're part of the family. As long as we can keep that going, I think we'll be pretty successful, because everybody will say it, right? Like, it's hard to manage people, but we can't get anything done without people around us, right? And so the success of Singh is not based on somebody with the last name that I have. It's really based on all the people that joined us, helped us move forward. And I think, all the people that have relationships with us, third parties, lenders, municipalities, they're also part of that success, right? They understand what we're trying to do.
That's incredible. Thank you. Dannis, did you have anything to add?
Well, yeah, so Barton Malow is a family-owned company. We're now employee-owned, but we're managed by the Maybach family. And to have over 3,000 employees and have a culture that's as family-driven as ours is something that I can honestly say is a bit unique. So I have the joy of working across all of our regional offices, and when you go to each regional office, the feel is the same, the culture is the same. We are one company driving towards the same goal. The reality is we're problem solvers. People say, oh, you're builders. No, we're problem solvers. And in order to be a problem solver, you have to have a strong team around you. On our job sites, it's high stress, it's very intense, and to be able to provide that level of support to your peers and your teammates is something that I believe we all understand is needed, and that's why we're able to be successful. It's not just, we have one job to do while we're on a project and we have to focus on that project for the next 18 to 24 months or that one job. No, I'm the person that goes out and say, okay, what's going on with the project team? How are things going? Managing the client. You have to have a lot of irons in the fire to really be a successful business, but you also have to understand the needs of your people. And to really say that we build people first before projects is something that is very near and dear to our ownership. So when you have, again, that vision, that culture, we've talked a lot about that today. And it's really important because at the end of the day, the people are the ones that are building the projects. So I look at it from internally, our project management teams, but then we have another layer of our subcontractors and their employees. So now you get down to the skilled labor and understanding that they have unique needs as well. It's really, in order to get a project done, I don't care what market it's in, you have to have a level of collaboration, and everyone has to walk in lock and step with one another, from the management team down, in order to be successful. And when you have a culture that's built on, family goals and core values, it's something that really people really buy into, and they want to stay at the organization.
That's fabulous. Thank you, Dannis. Well, I just want to give a big round of applause for our incredible panel and thank them for being here today. And thank you, Derek, for putting together such a great event.